The Great Hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with hundreds of different sounds. Translators worked hard to turn clicks, whistles, and roars into words everyone could understand. Ambassador Velkara stood at the center platform, her forearms folded across her chest. The lights made her blue scales shine as she looked at the gathered representatives from across the galaxy. She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above her. It showed a small blue and green planet spinning slowly in the dark space. "This is Earth," she said. Her voice was calm but firm. "We discovered it 6 cycles ago during a routine scan of the outer spiral arm. The dominant species calls themselves humans." The hall filled with murmurs. Most council members barely looked up from their datapads. Another primitive species. Another warning from the paranoid Xanthari. Nothing new. Velkara continued anyway.
She had prepared this presentation for weeks.
The hologram changed to show images of humans, 2-legged creatures with smooth skin and strange patches of fur only on their heads. They looked weak, small, soft. "Do not be fooled by their appearance," Velkara warned. "Our research teams have studied their history. These creatures survived an ice age that covered most of their planet. They endured diseases that killed half their population. They fought wars that destroyed entire cities, then rebuilt them even stronger." A Calaxian delegate laughed. His voice sounded like grinding stones. He was old, with metals covering his chest. The kind who had seen 1,000 species and found them all lacking. "Ambassador Velkara," he said, still chuckling. "We appreciate your thoroughness. But surely you are not suggesting that this species poses a threat? They have not even achieved faster-than-light travel yet." The hologram shifted again. This time it showed humans in combat. Soldiers running through fire. Medics treating wounded while explosions went off around them. Civilians pulling survivors from collapsed buildings. No one was giving up. No one was running away. "Look at how they fight," Velkara said. She pointed at the images with one of her upper arms. "They do not retreat when injured. They do not surrender when outnumbered. Their pain tolerance exceeds anything we have documented in other species. They invented something called a stimulant that lets them fight even when their bodies should be shutting down." A few delegates leaned forward now. The images were disturbing. One showed a human with a metal leg. Another showed humans working in temperatures that would kill most species within minutes. There were humans underwater, humans in deserts, humans on frozen mountains. They were everywhere their planet would let them go. Velkara pulled up more data. Charts and numbers filled the air. In just the last 200 of their years, they went from using animals for transportation to sending machines to other planets in their system. They split the atom. They created a global communication network. They developed artificial intelligence. And they did all of this while fighting each other in countless wars. The Calaxian delegate was not smiling anymore. Others were reading the data carefully now. Population growth rates, technological advancement curves, industrial capacity. The numbers told a story that was hard to ignore. A small voice spoke up from the back. It belonged to Elder Morketh, one of the oldest beings in the council. His species had been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. When he spoke, people listened. "I remember another species like this," he said slowly. "Long ago, before most of your civilizations existed. They were adaptable, persistent. They refused to stay in their place. Within 3 generations of first contact, they controlled 1/3 of the galaxy." The hall went quiet. Everyone knew the story. It had not ended well. The other species had to be contained. Pushed back. Forced into treaties that limited their expansion. It had taken centuries and cost millions of lives. Velkara nodded. This was the moment she had been building toward. "Exactly, Elder. Humans show all the same patterns. But there is something more. Something that makes them potentially more dangerous." She paused for effect. "Humans form emotional bonds across genetic lines. They adopt animals from other species as family members. They cry over fictional stories. They will sacrifice themselves for strangers. This emotional capacity makes them unpredictable. It means they might not act in their own rational self-interest." More murmuring filled the hall. This was truly unusual. Most species only cared for their own genetic line. Cooperation existed, yes, but it was transactional, logical. Humans seemed to operate on something else entirely. The Calaxian delegate stood. His attitude had changed completely. "What do you propose, Ambassador?" Velkara closed the hologram. She looked around the room, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. "Special containment protocols, strict limits on technology transfer, careful monitoring of their expansion. And above all, we must never provoke them to unified action. A divided humanity is manageable. A united humanity could be unstoppable. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some agreed. Others thought it was paranoia. A few suggested simply avoiding contact entirely. The Galaxian delegate called for standard first contact procedures. No special treatment. No unnecessary restrictions. When the vote came, the majority sided with the Galaxians. Standard protocols only. The humans would be treated like any other emerging species, welcomed into the galactic community, given access to trade and technology, allowed to expand at their own pace. Velkara stood alone on the platform after the others left. She looked at the hologram of Earth one more time. Somewhere down there, 8 billion humans were going about their lives. They had no idea that their entire future had just been decided by beings light years away. They had no idea that they had been noticed at all. She whispered to herself even though no one was left to hear. We have been warned. We have been given all the information we need. When this goes wrong, and it will go wrong, no one can say they were not told. She turned off the lights and walked out. Behind her, the empty council chamber sat in darkness. In 6 months, a Galaxian diplomatic vessel would arrive at Earth. First contact would begin. The galaxy would never be the same. Velkara did not sleep well that night. She kept thinking about the human phrase her research team had found. It appeared in dozens of their languages, spoken across thousands of years of their history. 4 simple words that should have told the council everything they needed to know. We will not yield. The Galaxian diplomatic vessel emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Captain Thros stood on the bridge, his 3 eyes scanning the primitive planet ahead. He had done this 100 times before. First contact was routine for someone with his experience. Begin standard communication protocols, he ordered. His crew moved efficiently. They had trained for this mission for months, though Thros suspected it would be unnecessary. Humans could not possibly be as interesting as Ambassador Velkara had suggested. The first transmissions went out in multiple frequencies. Mathematical sequences, universal constants, simple images. Within an hour, they received a response. The humans had been expecting them. Radio telescopes had apparently spotted the vessel days ago. They were already prepared with greeting messages in several Earth languages. Thros was mildly impressed. Most primitive species took weeks to organize any kind of response. Humans had mobilized their entire planet in less than 72 hours. Every nation had representatives gathering at something called the United Nations. They had even prepared translation software based on the mathematics the Galaxians had sent. They are efficient, noted his second officer, a young female named Cress. Perhaps we should proceed carefully. Thros waved a dismissive hand. His scales rippled with amusement. Efficiency does not equal danger. They are simply eager to please their new guests. As they should be. The landing ceremony took place in New York City. Thros had never seen anything quite like it. Humans packed the streets for miles. Cameras from every news organization on the planet pointed at the landing pad. The leaders of the most powerful human nations stood in a line waiting to greet them. What struck Thros most was the emotion. Humans were crying, some with joy, some with fear, but all with an intensity he had rarely witnessed. They acted as if this moment would change everything. Perhaps it would, but not in the way they hoped. The human who greeted him called herself Secretary General Martinez. She was small even by human standards, but she carried herself with authority, her hand extended toward him. After consulting his cultural database, Thros realized this was a gesture of greeting. He reached out and grasped it. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Welcome to Earth, Captain Thros, she said through the translator. We have waited our entire existence for this moment. We are not alone in the universe. The formal ceremony lasted hours. Speeches in dozens of languages, music from cultures across the planet, gifts representing human achievement. Thros accepted them politely, though privately he found most of it childish. One particularly odd gift was a golden record containing sounds and images from Earth. As if anyone would care about the sounds of whales or the image of a human child. But then came the questions. This was where things became interesting. The humans had prepared a list. Not simple queries about culture or philosophy, but detailed technical questions. They wanted to know about the Galactic Council's structure. Who held power? How were disputes resolved? What were the military capabilities of member species? What resources were most valuable in interstellar trade? Thros answered carefully. These were not secret matters, but the focus seemed unusual. Most species wanted to know about art, science, and culture first. Humans seemed more interested in understanding the power dynamics of galactic civilization. A human general, a broad man with gray hair and sharp eyes, asked about weapons technology. Captain, would you be willing to demonstrate some of your defensive capabilities? We are curious about how more advanced civilizations protect themselves. Thros saw no harm in this. He had his crew set up a target on the landing field. A simple plasma discharge weapon, standard issue for any council vessel. Nothing classified, nothing special. He fired it at the target. The metal melted instantly, leaving a glowing crater. The humans applauded, but Thros noticed something in the general's eyes. The man was not impressed by the spectacle. He was analyzing, calculating. His lips moved silently as if doing math in his head. Afterward, the same general approached Thros privately. Fascinating weapon, Captain. We have theorized about similar plasma containment methods, but we lack the materials to create the necessary magnetic fields. What alloys does your civilization use? Thros felt a moment of unease. Humans had already theorized about plasma weapons. They simply lacked materials. That suggested a level of understanding that should have taken decades more to achieve. I am not at liberty to discuss specific technical details, Thros replied. But I'm sure such information will become available through proper diplomatic channels. The general smiled. It did not reach his eyes, of course. We understand. We have much to learn from you. Over the next 3 days, Thros met with human leaders from every major nation. They all asked similar questions. Technology, resources, politics, military, trade routes. The pattern was clear. Humans were not simply curious about the galaxy. They were studying it, preparing for it. On the final day, Secretary General Martinez made an unexpected proposal. Captain Thros, humanity would like to formally request immediate integration into the Galactic Council. We understand this process usually takes decades, but we believe we can accelerate it. We are prepared to offer our unique resources and capabilities in exchange for technology sharing and full membership status. Thros stared at her. This was highly irregular. Species did not ask to join the council. They were invited after centuries of observation, after proving they could handle the responsibility. Humans had known about the galaxy for less than a week. Secretary General, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but the council has procedures. There are requirements that must be met, technologies that must be developed, cultural maturity that must be demonstrated. Martinez nodded as if she had expected this answer. We understand. Perhaps we could begin with cultural exchange programs. We would like to send human representatives to council space, scientists, engineers, diplomats, people who can learn from your civilization and share our own perspectives. This seemed reasonable enough. Cultural exchange was standard for first contact. Thros agreed. As his ship prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Thros compiled his report. Overall assessment positive. Humans were eager, intelligent, and adaptable. They would make adequate members of galactic civilization eventually. With proper guidance and patience, they might even become valuable contributors. He added one final note to his log. Humans are remarkably resilient creatures. Their planet has over 6,000 distinct languages, suggesting extreme cultural diversity. They have survived multiple extinction-level events, including ice ages, volcanic catastrophes, and even impacts from space objects. Their ability to thrive in varied environments is exceptional. However, nothing we have not encountered before in other species. With standard integration protocols, they should fit well into the existing galactic order. He did not mention the general's eyes. He did not mention the calculating way humans had asked every question. He did not mention the speed with which they had organized a planetary response. These details seemed minor at the time. As the Calaxian vessel jumped to faster-than-light speed, Captain Thros allowed himself to relax. Another successful first contact. Another primitive species welcomed into the fold. In a few generations, humans would be just another minor member of the council. Nothing special. Nothing to worry about. Back on Earth, Secretary General Martinez stood at the window of her office. She watched the alien ship disappear into the stars. A smile played at her lips. They think we are manageable, she said to the general standing beside her. The general nodded. His tablet displayed detailed notes on plasma weapon mechanics, council power structures, and potential resource locations. Good. Let them keep thinking that. 5 years had passed since first contact. Ambassador Velkara sat in her office reviewing the latest reports from across council space. The numbers told a story that made her stomach twist with worry. Humans were everywhere. The cultural exchange program had started small. A few hundred humans sent to various council worlds, scientists studying alien biology, engineers learning advanced manufacturing techniques, diplomats observing council proceedings, standard procedure for integrating new species. But humans did not stay in the structured programs. Within months, they were applying for work permits, opening businesses, marrying into alien families, forming partnerships with local entrepreneurs. They spread through council space like water finding cracks in stone. The Economic Bureau had just released its quarterly analysis. Human traders controlled 17% of shipping routes that had existed for centuries. How? By working longer hours, accepting lower profit margins, building relationships with species that others ignored. One human shipping company had hired exclusively Draknor crews, a species most others considered too aggressive. The humans thrived working alongside them. Human entertainment had become the most popular content across the galaxy. Their movies, music, and stories dominated cultural exchanges. Aliens found human emotions fascinating, the way humans could cry over fictional characters, the way they told stories of sacrifice and heroism. One human film about a spacecraft crew stranded far from home had become the highest-rated entertainment in council history. But what worried Velkara most was the military sector. Human private military. Companies had appeared 3 years ago. At first, they were small operations, former soldiers looking for work. They took contracts protecting mining operations in dangerous sectors. Simple security work, nothing concerning. Then came the Xanthari colony crisis. Pirates had attacked a Xanthari mining colony on the outer rim. The colony sent distress signals. Council peacekeepers were 3 days away. Commercial security forces evaluated the situation and refused the contract. Too dangerous. Too many pirates. Not enough profit to justify the risk. A human company called Titan Security took the job. Velkara had watched the combat footage a dozen times. She still could not believe what she saw. The humans arrived with a force of only 30 soldiers. The pirates numbered over 200. Any rational analysis said the humans should have retreated immediately. They did not retreat. The battle lasted 6 hours. The humans used tactics that no other species would consider. They fought from positions that offered no escape routes. When their ammunition ran low, they improvised weapons from colony equipment. When their armor was breached, they kept fighting anyway. 3 humans died in the first hour. The rest did not slow down. When council peacekeepers finally arrived, the pirates were gone. 18 humans remained standing. 12 were wounded so severely they should have been unconscious. They were still at their posts, maintaining defensive positions, ready to fight if the pirates returned. The mission commander, a human named Chen, gave her report to the Xanthari colonial governor. We were hired to protect this colony. The contract is fulfilled. We will remain on station until you confirm adequate security measures are in place. She said this while standing on a broken leg. Medical scans later showed she had 3 fractured ribs, internal bleeding, and severe burns across her back. She had commanded the entire operation in this condition. The footage went viral across council space. Within weeks, every human military company had contracts backed up for years. Species who had never hired private security before were now specifically requesting human operators. The council began receiving complaints. Always the same issues. Humans worked too hard. Humans undercut prices. Humans did not respect traditional business hierarchies. They formed partnerships across species lines that had been enemies for generations. They asked uncomfortable questions about why things had always been done a certain way. Velkara compiled all of this into a comprehensive report. She requested an emergency council session. This time they could not ignore her. The chamber was more crowded than last time. Everyone had human stories now. The Draknor ambassador spoke of human engineers who had revolutionized their shipbuilding industry. The Calaxian delegate mentioned human scientists who had solved problems that had stumped researchers for decades. Even the usually silent Crystalline Collective sent a representative to discuss human artists who had created the first cross-species collaborative symphony. But the tone was different from celebration. There was unease in the air. Ambassador Velkara, the Calaxian delegate, said, "Nobody disputes that humans have been productive, but surely you are not suggesting we restrict their activities. They have broken no laws. They have honored all contracts. They have contributed significantly to galactic commerce and culture." Velkara activated her presentation. Charts and graphs filled the air above the assembly. In 5 years, human population in council space has grown by 3,000%. Not through migration from Earth, but through reproduction and recruitment. They marry aliens. They adopt alien children. They create hybrid families that cross genetic boundaries we thought were absolute. She pulled up another chart. Human economic influence has expanded into sectors that have been stable for centuries. They are not replacing existing businesses. They are creating entirely new markets. They see opportunities where we see nothing. They find value in resources we discarded as worthless. A third chart appeared, most concerning, human military capability development. They have learned everything we have taught them and integrated it with their own innovations. Their private military companies now possess technology that rivals Council peacekeeping forces, and they achieved this in 5 years. The chamber was silent now. The numbers were impossible to ignore. "What exactly are you proposing?" asked Elder Morketh. Velkara took a deep breath. Restrictions on human expansion. Limits on technology transfer. Careful monitoring of their military development. And most importantly, we must prevent them from achieving unity. As long as humans remain culturally divided, competing among themselves, they are manageable. But if they ever unite behind a single purpose, I fear we will not be able to control what follows. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some supported Velkara's proposals. Others argued it would violate Council principles of free commerce and movement. A few suggested that human success was something to celebrate, not fear. In the end, the Council voted to establish a committee to study the issue. No immediate action, no restrictions. Just more observation and more reports. Velkara left the chamber feeling defeated. She had presented every fact, every warning sign, every reason for concern, and the Council had responded with the bureaucratic equivalent of doing nothing. As she walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime, she passed a human-run cafe that had opened last year. It was packed with aliens from a dozen species, all eating human food and watching human entertainment on wall screens. A Draknor and a human were having an animated discussion about some sporting event. A Zenthari child was laughing at a human comedian. The integration was happening whether the Council wanted it or not. Humans were not conquering galactic civilization, they were becoming part of it, weaving themselves into every aspect of it, making themselves indispensable. And if the Council ever tried to stop them, Velkara realized, they would find that humans had already become too important to remove. Like a tree whose roots had grown deep into the foundation of a building. You could not pull it out without bringing down everything around it. She entered her office and sat down heavily. Her terminal showed 17 new messages. 12 were about human activities in various sectors. The other 5 were from human companies offering their services. Velkara closed her eyes. They had been warned. She had warned them. And now it was probably too late to do anything about it. Supreme Commander Zarkoth of the Krell hegemony had made his decision. Humans needed to be taught their place in the galactic order. The Krell were the Council's premier military power. Their fleets had maintained order for 3,000 years. They understood strength. They understood hierarchy, and they understood that allowing an upstart species to disrupt established systems would only lead to chaos. The disputed asteroid was the perfect opportunity. Technically, it lay in unclaimed space, but the Krell had been mining it for decades. Then humans showed up with legal documents claiming the Council charter allowed them to establish operations there. Typical human behavior. Finding loopholes, ignoring tradition. Zarkoth sent a fleet to seize the human mining operation. He expected immediate surrender. Humans were traders and engineers, not warriors. Their private military companies were good at fighting pirates, perhaps, but this was a real military force. The humans did not surrender. They transmitted a message saying they would defend their legal claim. Then they started evacuating non-essential, Personnel Zarkoth was almost impressed by their courage, almost. He issued an ultimatum: leave within 24 hours or face military action. The humans stayed. The Krell assault was textbook perfect. Overwhelming force. Superior firepower. The human defenders lasted 6 hours before their defenses collapsed. Zarkoth's forces took the facility with minimal casualties. 3 human miners who had refused to evacuate were captured as trespassers. To make his point clear, Zarkoth ordered them executed, publicly. The message needed to be unmistakable. Humans could not challenge Krell authority. He expected the humans to complain through diplomatic channels, file protests with the council, perhaps impose economic sanctions. Standard responses from civilized species. What happened next changed everything. Within hours of the executions, human corporations across the galaxy began pulling investments from Krell space. Not gradually. Not with negotiation, immediately. Hundreds of billions in assets withdrawn overnight. Human workers resigned from Krell companies in coordinated waves. Human traders canceled contracts, citing safety concerns. The Krell economy, which had become dependent on human commerce over the past 5 years, went into shock. Stock markets crashed. Supply chains collapsed. Production facilities shut down when their human technicians disappeared. Zarkoth was annoyed but not concerned. Economies recovered. The humans were just being emotional. They would return once they realized how much profit they were losing. Then the human mercenary companies stopped taking Krell contracts. All of them, simultaneously. Security forces that had protected Krell assets across the galaxy simply walked away. Pirates and raiders noticed immediately. Krell shipping became vulnerable overnight. Still, Zarkoth remained confident. These were minor inconveniences. The Krell military could protect their own interests. The diplomatic assault came next. Human lawyers flooded the council with legal challenges. They cited regulations that were centuries old, found precedents that nobody remembered, filed thousands of complaints about Krell violations of trade law, environmental protocols, and worker safety standards. The council bureaucracy ground to a halt trying to process them all. Zarkoth called an emergency meeting with his advisors. "This is economic warfare," one said. "But it is legal. They are not breaking any rules." "Let them play their games," Zarkoth responded. "We are a military power. Economic pressure means nothing when you can take what you need by force." Then came the attack on Sigma Fornax. Sigma Fornax was a Krell naval depot in a remote system. It housed 3 cruisers, supplies for a dozen more, and served as a logistics hub for Krell operations in the sector. The security was standard. The location was secret. The humans found it anyway. The assault force was small. Maybe 50 humans in 3 ships. They should not have been a threat. The depot had automated defenses, a garrison of 200 soldiers, and could call for reinforcements within hours. The humans did not fight like a military force. They fought like madmen. They came in fast, using civilian ship transponders to get close. Then they dropped the disguise and opened fire with weapons that should not have been on civilian vessels. When point defense systems activated, the humans did something insane. They rammed their damaged ships into the defense platforms. The crews survived somehow. They boarded the depot using breaching equipment welded together from mining tools. The garrison responded, but the humans had studied Krell combat tactics. They knew exactly where to hit and how to move. They used captured Krell weapons against Krell soldiers. When they reached the cruisers, they did not try to capture them. They destroyed them, set charges in critical systems, overloaded reactors, turned 3 of the Krell Navy's finest vessels into expanding clouds of debris. Then they disappeared, vanished into the darkness of space before reinforcements could arrive. Zarkoth stared at the damage reports in disbelief. This was not how civilized species fought wars. You did not sacrifice your own ships. You did not throw away lives on suicide missions. You certainly did not attack military targets with improvised weapons and mining equipment. He demanded the council intervene. The humans must be held accountable. This was terrorism. This was piracy. This violated every rule of warfare. The human governments expressed shock and concern. They claimed to have no knowledge of the attack. These must be independent actors, rogue elements, criminals seeking revenge for the executed miners. The governments could not be held responsible for the actions of private citizens. It was obvious they were lying. The coordination was too perfect, the intelligence too precise. But they had covered their tracks well enough that the Council could not prove official involvement. Zarkoth made his second mistake. He ordered retaliation. If the humans wanted war, he would give them war. Krell fleets moved toward human colony worlds. This would be a proper military operation. Overwhelming force, clear objectives, total victory. Ambassador Velkara watched the fleet movements from her office and felt her heart sink. The Council tried to intervene, tried to mediate, but Zarkoth would not listen. The Krell had been insulted. Honor demanded response. She sent one final message to the Krell Supreme Commander, Commander Zarkoth. I beg you to reconsider. You have not seen what I have seen. You do not understand what humans become when pushed to the edge. They do not fight to win. They fight until nothing is left. Please, find another way. The response came quickly. Ambassador, your concerns are noted, but the Krell do not fear humans. We will teach them the price of attacking us. This will be over quickly. Velkara sat in the darkness of her office watching the fleet markers move toward human space. She knew how this would end. The question was not whether the humans would fight. The question was how much of the galaxy would burn before someone made them stop. On Earth, emergency broadcasts went out across all channels. The message was simple, clear, terrifying in its implications. Attention all human colonies and citizens. The Krell hegemony has declared war. All civilians are to evacuate to designated safe zones. All defense forces are to report to their assigned stations. All private military contractors are hereby activated under emergency protocols. The message ended with 6 words that would echo across the galaxy. We will not yield. We never do. The first battle at New Terra should have been a quick Krell victory. Supreme Commander Zarkoth had sent 3 battle groups, 15 warships against a lightly defended colony world. The humans had 2 defense platforms and maybe a dozen civilian vessels hastily armed with weapons. The battle lasted 3 days. The humans did not fight in formation. They did not follow standard tactical doctrine. They used their civilian ships as weapons, ramming Krell vessels when their ammunition ran out. When one defense platform was destroyed, the crew evacuated to the second platform and continued fighting. When the second platform fell, they evacuated to the planet and set up ground defenses. Zarkoth ordered orbital bombardment, standard procedure for softening defenses before landing ground forces. The humans had prepared for this. They had scattered the civilian population across thousands of underground shelters. The bombardment destroyed infrastructure but killed relatively few people. The Krell ground forces landed expecting broken resistance. They found humans who had turned their entire colony into a fortress. Every building had become a firing position. Every tunnel held ambush points. The civilians had not evacuated. They had armed themselves and joined the defense. Children too young to fight served as messengers and medics. The elderly operated communication systems and manufactured ammunition from salvaged materials. Everyone contributed. Everyone fought. By the time Krell forces secured the colony, they had suffered 40% casualties. And the humans still had not surrendered. The remaining defenders retreated to the hills and continued fighting as guerrillas. This pattern repeated across every battlefront. Humans refused to acknowledge defeat. They treated surrender as a concept that simply did not apply to them. At the Battle of Kepler Station, surrounded Krell forces sent a standard message requesting terms of surrender. The human commander responded with a single word: no. The humans then detonated their own station rather than let it fall into Krell hands. The explosion took out the entire Krell boarding force, but it was the biological weapons that truly horrified the galaxy. Human scientists had studied Krell biology during the years of peaceful contact. They knew Krell metabolism, their immune systems, their genetic structure. Within weeks of war breaking out, humans deployed pathogens specifically designed to target Krell physiology. The diseases were not lethal. That would have violated Council bioweapon treaties, but they were debilitating. Krell soldiers found themselves unable to fight effectively. Fleet crews became too sick to operate their ships properly. It was warfare through deliberate targeted illness. The Council condemned the tactic. The humans pointed out they were following the letter of the law. The pathogens caused temporary disability, not death. Technically legal, even if morally questionable. Zarkoth adapted. He ordered his forces to maintain distance. Use long-range bombardment. Avoid close engagements where human tactics were most effective. The humans adapted faster. They began mining entire regions of space, not just military targets but civilian shipping lanes. Trade routes that had been safe for centuries became deadly obstacle courses. The humans did not care that this hurt neutral species. They wanted to make the entire war so costly that everyone would pressure the Krell to stop. When Krell fleets tried to blockade human worlds, the humans turned their civilian transports into weapons. Freighters packed with explosives rammed blockade lines. The pilots usually survived using escape pods, but the tactic forced Krell ships to treat every civilian vessel as a potential threat. Ambassador Velkara watched the war reports with growing horror. This was not war as the galaxy understood it. War was supposed to follow rules, have objectives, reach logical conclusions when one side gained advantage. Humans treated war as existence itself. They would sacrifice anything, use any tactic, accept any cost. The concept of proportional response meant nothing to them. You attacked their miners? They destroyed your economy. You killed 3 of their people? They made your entire military infrastructure vulnerable. You invaded their colonies? They turned warfare into a nightmare that no rational species would want to continue. The turning point came at the Battle of the Crimson Nebula. A human fleet had been retreating for days, pursued by superior Krell forces. Standard tactical wisdom said they should surrender or escape into deep space. They did neither. They led the Krell fleet into the nebula, dense gas clouds that disrupted sensors and communication. The Krell commander was cautious but confident. His force outnumbered the humans 3-1. Even in poor conditions, victory was assured. The humans revealed a weapon they had been developing, a device that could trigger rapid fusion reactions in hydrogen-rich environments. In normal space, it would create a small explosion. In a nebula, it would ignite the entire gas cloud. The human commander sent one final transmission before activating the device. To all Krell forces, you wanted to show us the price of resistance? We are about to show you the price of making humans desperate. We will take you with us. The nebula ignited. Expanding waves of plasma and radiation consumed both fleets. The humans had known this would happen. They had accepted it. They were willing to die if it meant taking enemy forces with them. Casualty reports showed that most human ships had their crews in radiation shelters when the weapon fired. Their ships were destroyed, but many crews survived in emergency pods. They had calculated this, planned for it, turned what looked like a suicide attack into a calculated trade of hardware for enemy personnel. The Krell lost 2 battle groups, thousands of experienced personnel, all because the humans were willing to sacrifice their own ships to get an advantage. Supreme Commander Zarkoth sat in his command center, reviewing the reports. His forces were winning by traditional metrics. They controlled more territory. They had destroyed more enemy ships. They had superior firepower. But they were losing in every way that mattered. Krell casualties were mounting faster than replacements could be trained. The economy was in chaos from human economic warfare. Other council species were pulling support, afraid of becoming targets themselves. And the humans just kept fighting. Every battle was Pyrrhic. Every victory cost more than it gained. The humans made sure of it. They fought from impossible positions. They turned every defeat into a costly victory for the enemy. They made the Krell pay for every meter of space, every colony world, every strategic position. Zarkoth's advisors were unanimous. Continue this war and the Krell hegemony would win. But it would be a victory that destroyed them. The costs were too high. The humans would never stop. Even if you conquered every human world, survivors would continue fighting from whatever ships remained. They would become pirates, raiders, guerrillas. They would make the entire galaxy unsafe until the Krell gave up what they had taken. For the first time in 3,000 years of military dominance, the Krell faced an enemy they could not defeat through superior force. Zarkoth sent a message to the Galactic Council. The Krell hegemony requests immediate ceasefire negotiations. We are prepared to return to pre-war territorial arrangements and discuss terms. The Council moved faster than they ever had before. Everyone wanted this war to end. Not because they cared about the casualties, but because they were terrified of what humans might do next. Ambassador Velkara led the negotiations. She sat across from human representatives and Krell commanders. The atmosphere was tense. The humans looked tired but determined. The Krell looked defeated despite their military superiority. The ceasefire terms were simple. Return to pre-war borders. Mutual prisoner exchanges. Reparations for civilian damages. Standard peace treaty provisions. But everyone in that room knew the real outcome. The humans had won. Not through military victory, but by proving they would rather burn everything than accept defeat. They had shown the galaxy something that changed the balance of power forever. You could not intimidate humans. You could not make them yield through force. You could only choose whether to fight them or live alongside them. And fighting them meant accepting costs that no rational species would pay. As the treaty was signed, Velkara looked at the human chief negotiator, a woman named Ambassador Chen, the same soldier who had defended the Zinthari colony years ago. She had traded her uniform for diplomatic attire, but the steel in her eyes remained. Ambassador Chen, Velkara said quietly, you have taught us all a lesson, one I wish we had learned without so much bloodshed. Chen nodded. Her expression was neutral, but her words carried weight. We tried to tell you. We tried to integrate peacefully. We followed your rules. But some people only understand one language, so we taught them that humans do not make good enemies. We make excellent friends or terrible opponents. The choice was always yours. The war was over. But the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The Galactic Council chamber was filled beyond capacity. Every member species had sent representatives. Everyone wanted to be present for this historic session, the one where the Council would decide what to do about humanity. Ambassador Velkara stood at the central podium. After years of warnings, after a devastating war, after everything she had predicted coming true, she finally had the Council's complete attention. We face a choice, she began. We can continue treating humans as an emerging species requiring supervision. We can attempt to restrict their expansion and limit their influence. Or we can accept reality and adapt accordingly. A Draknor delegate stood, his massive frame casting shadows across the floor. Ambassador Velkara. The humans have proven dangerous. They have shown they will use any means necessary to achieve their goals. How can we trust them with full council membership? How can we give them equal voice in galactic affairs? Velkara had prepared for this argument, because we have no other choice. In 10 years, humans have become integrated into every aspect of galactic civilization. They control significant portions of our economy. They provide security for countless worlds. They have formed families with dozens of species. You cannot remove them without tearing apart the fabric of what the Council has built. She pulled up economic data. 17% of interstellar trade is handled by human-owned or human-partnered companies. 32% of private security forces employ humans or use human-developed tactics. 48% of scientific research papers published last cycle had human co-authors. They are not invaders we can expel. They are neighbors we must learn to live with. Elder Morketh spoke from his seat. His ancient voice carried authority that silenced the murmuring crowd. I have seen this pattern before. I told you all years ago, when a species shows the adaptability, persistence, and creativity of humans, you have two paths. Make them your enemies through exclusion, or make them your partners through integration. The Krell chose the first path. We all saw what happened. The Krell delegation sat in uncomfortable silence. Supreme Commander Zarkoth was not present. He had resigned after the war, his 1,000-year military legacy tarnished by failure against a species that should have been easy to defeat. Velkara continued her presentation. I propose the following. Grant humanity full council membership with permanent committee seats. Establish mutual defense treaties that include human military forces. Create technology sharing agreements that formalize what is already happening informally. And most importantly, establish oversight protocols that involve humans in their own regulation. A Calaxian delegate objected. You want us to give them power over their own limitations? That is absurd. That is giving them exactly what they want. Velkara nodded. Yes. Because the alternative is worse. If we try to impose external controls without their cooperation, they will resist. They will find loopholes. They will do exactly what they did during the war. Use our own systems against us. But if we make them partners in maintaining galactic stability, they have incentive to follow the rules they helped create. The debate lasted hours. Species who had worked successfully with humans argued for integration. Those who felt threatened argued for containment. But gradually the momentum shifted toward Velcara's proposal. The reality was simple. Humans had already proven they could not be controlled through force. They could not be economically isolated. They could not be culturally contained. The only question was whether the Council would acknowledge this reality officially or continue pretending they had options they did not actually possess. The vote came near the end of the session. Full Council membership for humanity, permanent seats on the Security Committee, the Economic Council, and the Science Directorate. Mutual defense treaties, technology sharing agreements. All passed by comfortable margins. Ambassador Chen was invited to address the Council. She walked to the podium with quiet confidence. Her speech was brief and carefully chosen. Honored delegates, humanity thanks you for this vote of confidence. We recognize that our integration has been turbulent. We do not apologize for defending ourselves or for pursuing our interests vigorously. But we are not conquerors. We never wanted to dominate galactic civilization. We wanted to be part of it. She paused, letting her words sink in. We offer you partnership. Humanity has unique capabilities that can benefit all species. Our adaptability means we can work in environments others cannot. Our persistence means we complete missions others would abandon. Our creativity means we find solutions to problems others consider unsolvable. And yes, our defensive capability means we can protect those who cannot protect themselves. Chen pulled up a hologram. It showed various human innovations developed in the past decade. Faster-than-light communication systems, quantum computing advances, medical treatments, agricultural techniques, defensive technologies. We are prepared to share all of this, not as a transaction but as partners. We will contribute to Council defensive forces. We will participate in scientific collaborations. We will honor the treaties and agreements that make galactic civilization possible. She closed with words that would be remembered for generations. Some of you fear us. That is understandable. We fought a war that showed our capacity for violence and our unwillingness to yield. But understand this, we are far more valuable as friends than as enemies. We do not seek domination. We seek cooperation. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to explore it, learn from it, and contribute to it. The Council chamber erupted in applause. Not universal support, but enough. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humans were here to stay. After the session, Velcara found Chen in one of the station's observation lounges. The human stood watching ships come and go from Nexus Prime's docking bays, a mix of designs from across the galaxy, including several human-built vessels that had become popular for their reliability and innovative features. Ambassador Chen, Velcara said, approaching carefully. I wanted to ask you something. Did your people plan all of this? The integration? The economic expansion? The military capability development? Was this all part of some strategy? Chen smiled slightly. Not the way you mean. We did not have a master plan to take over the galaxy. But we did have a plan to ensure our survival and prosperity. When you meet advanced civilizations, you have two choices: become irrelevant or become indispensable. We chose indispensable. She turned to face Velcara directly. We studied your history. We learned how the Council works. We identified gaps where human capabilities could fill needs. We worked hard. We adapted fast. We formed genuine relationships across species lines. And when someone tried to push us out through force, we showed them why that was a bad idea. Velcara felt a chill. The humans had not stumbled into galactic prominence. They had engineered it. Not through deception, but through understanding and effort. You are remarkable, Velcara said, and terrifying. Chen laughed softly. We prefer reliable partners. Humans are both of those things. We are remarkable when you work with us, terrifying when you work against us. The choice has always been yours. They stood together watching the ships for a while. The silence was comfortable now. Two diplomats who understood each other. Did you know? Chen asked suddenly. When you gave your first warning to the Council, did you know it would end like this? Velcara considered the question carefully. I knew humans were dangerous. I knew they would not stay in the role we wanted them to play. I warned the Council to be careful, to establish boundaries, to proceed with caution. They ignored me. And yes, in some ways that made this outcome inevitable. By treating you as a threat instead of potential partners from the beginning, they created the very situation they feared. Chen nodded. Self-fulfilling prophecy. You told them we were too dangerous to provoke. They provoked us anyway, and we proved you right exactly. Years later, Velkara would stand in this same spot watching an even more diverse collection of ships. Human-designed vessels crewed by mixed-species teams had become common. Joint military exercises between Council peacekeepers and human defense forces happened regularly. Human scientists worked alongside aliens on projects across the galaxy. One day she watched a school group pass through the observation lounge. Young beings from a dozen species, all chattering together in a mix of languages. Among them were human children, indistinguishable in their behavior from their alien classmates. Playing together, learning together. Growing up in a galaxy where humans were just another member species, an elderly Xanthari approached and stood beside her. "You were right," he said, "about everything. The humans were dangerous, but not in the way we thought." Velkara smiled. "They were dangerous to our old ways, to our assumptions about how species should behave, to our comfortable hierarchies. But now they are part of us, and we are better for it." The Xanthari laughed. "My daughter married a human. My grandchildren are half human. I never thought I would see such a thing. But they are wonderful beings, strong, curious, kind. Perhaps humans are teaching us something we needed to learn." "What is that?" Velkara asked. "That strength and compassion are not opposites. That being willing to fight does not mean wanting to fight. That persistence and cooperation can coexist. Humans somehow manage to be both individually fierce and collectively cooperative. We thought those traits were contradictory. They prove